Hi everyone, and welcome to the 16th episode of Toot TV. And I don't know about you, but we think they're getting better every week. We'd love your feedback. Today we have our final in the series of the Isabel Redmond interviews and some interesting information about the Leader of the Opposition and planning in this state. We also go out to Ross Trevor and look at this mansion, magnificent property. I'm sure you're going to love to see inside that. Now remember, we're live and interactive, so be sure to email us or call us right now so we can answer the questions at the end of the show. Well, it's 37 degrees and mighty hot outside today, but not as hot as the market. I know that we've talked about it a lot, but the market is really cooking well at the moment. Now, today we're looking at some information that will be very helpful to the first-time investors. Need to have a look at it, and it'll be very interesting for you. The inside story covers what happens with 10 million people by 2050 coming into the Australian population, and of course South Australia getting a good percentage of that. What's the implications? Let's go and have a look.
Allowing more subdivisions, definitely up as well. Yeah. I mean, if you go to any other major city in the world, not that I particularly agree with it, but they've got, council flats that are 20 stories high all over the place, and we don't even allow 2 stories in a lot of areas.
I guess if we have the space, yes, grow out. I think there definitely needs to be more affordable housing.
They're making the blocks a lot smaller, so a lot of people are happy with that. If they're not, they don't want big yards. A lot of couples, they don't want the backyard. Their lifestyle is entertaining, so they don't want any gardens to worry about. They just come home and they've got a great, entertaining area inside.
Some really top comments there, and population growth is going to be a big thing of the future. Now, joining me is the #1 Australian salesperson, Mr. Peter Veitch. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Anthony. Nice to be here again.
I know you get embarrassed when I say that, but it's pretty cool to be the #1 salesperson in Australia.
It is, yeah. It's not something that everybody's achieved, obviously.
Anyway, look, just listening to that take about population growth and the impact on Adelaide, clearly good for property owners. What's your take on it?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a matter of how it's going to be handled, I guess, internally. I mean, as we know, Adelaide as a city sits between the hills and the beach. There is limited land available, which means we're looking at obviously a balance between urban sprawl. I mean, that's probably unavoidable, plus some higher density closer to the city. It's all about balance, but I think it's got to be very good for South Australia.
So how are the people reacting, do you think, to apartments versus houses on big blocks? There was quite a bit of comment about that.
Yeah, there is, I mean, you made comment earlier that how good the market is at the moment. I mean, it's as good as I've seen since the boom back at the end of 2007. We have a lot of overseas money coming into South Australia, Asian in particular, that seem to be focused on buying up these larger tracts of lands that you're talking about, buying lifestyle properties, which clearly are not available to them in their own countries. That's driving the market. I'm not as familiar necessarily with the apartment market, so your thoughts on that would be really interesting.
Well, the fascinating part of this is that the very people who have lived all of their lives in that kind of environment are actually, at the moment, pretty much buying some of the best, aren't they?
Absolutely, yeah. There's big money being spent on quality property now, and as I said, what's driving this market is a lack of quality property and a lot of demand.
In terms of the future of the apartment market, the only consideration or the concern I guess I've got is that you can recreate a tower with 200 or 300 apartments. You can't find a tract of land anywhere. Well, there's a few exceptions to that where you could get 200 to 300 houses on blocks of land. And I think one of the reasons you mentioned before, you've got the hills and you've got the coast. One of the reasons Adelaide's market has always been so stable is that it's very hard to find land to develop unless you go right out north or right out south. And of course the tunnel has helped because it's opened up the hills area a bit. But it's a good thing and a bad thing. The good news is that if you own property, it's helping hold the values. The bad news is if you're trying to get into the market, maybe a good spot to look would be the apartments and those emerging investment sort of stocks. The market itself, Peter, just how's it? It's hot. Anything in particular? Any hot spots?
Look, I think hot spots are sort of city fringe, some of the better known suburbs. where you can still buy some of these lifestyle properties, large tracts of land, nice character homes. I mean, that part of the market is really strong at the moment. We've had a couple of examples really recently where they've come onto the market and literally been sold within 5 or 6 days after multiple bids. So it's just demonstrating just where that demand is.
So in essence, the market is running pretty much through the board, and it's all looking really good. Now, in terms of planning, which is a big part of the future of Adelaide and the population growth and so on, today we have our third interview in our series with Isabel Redman. So let's go and have a look at the interview with Isabel.